Are you messing with me again? I think we are live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax, and let's chat about what is happening up in the stars above today. And today seems to be a really good day as there's not a whole lot going on. We get a little bit of a reprieve with some really good energy to last us throughout the day. And of course, what I'm talking about today is the moon in Gemini, one of my favorite placements for the moon ever. And today the moon in Gemini is in a trine to the sun in Aquarius. So that means they're in fellow elements and in working together kind of energy. The moon in Gemini will square Neptune in Pisces and also oppose Mars in Sagittarius. So today is a day that I think if to get the most bang for our buck, if you will, today, it's going to be all about how we share information and of all types, right? Especially any kind of information that involves new ideas, new ways of doing things, changing the picture, so to speak, focusing it in, or in other ways, turning things upside down and looking at them from a different vision or a different view. So today is about, I guess you could say, ingenuity, right? Seeing things from your genius point of view. And everybody has genius. Some people think, a genius is only about your mind and about what it is that you can share from your brilliance, facts and figures and the analysis of something, critically thinking, yada, yada, yada. But everybody has genius in some way, shape, or form. And it's up to you to express that genius, to bring that genius out. And a day like today allows us the opportunity to really lean into the new, to our particular point of genius, and to really begin to teach others what it is that we were here to teach. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be a professional teacher. Doesn't mean you have to come on Facebook every morning and teach people about astrology. But in ways big and small, every day we are in a position to teach people something, whether it's your children, the people that you come in contact with at work, or the people that you go to when you drop your children off at school. There's all different kinds of ways in which that you can teach people. And so the other side of the coin is about learning today. Learning. What are we learning? Every time, for example, this morning I have my Gene Keys book out, right? My Gene Keys. I got to turn back to Zoom here for a second because I can't tell if I'm in the camera or not. So every time I get my Gene Keys book out, and this morning I did because I wanted to have a conversation about the Gene Key 13, which is where the sun is. I learned tons. And I don't know how many times. I mean, this book I've had since 2014, and I've read every one of these Gene Keys at one point or another. And I learned things this morning about the 13th Gene Key that I either didn't remember it when I read it, or it wasn't time yet for me to really have taken that information in. And so it is a day for us to learn also, even if we're going back into things that we hadn't, that we've already studied, or things that we've already talked about with other people. Today is a day for learning. As well, those of you who are out in the world coaching, this is a great day for guidance, getting it on for yourself, or extending that to other people. And most of that is because of the moon in Gemini in that trine to the sun. But we also have another transit that's building. And I would say, if I looked at the chart, really, this is very close. The sun today is at the 15th degree of Aquarius, and Uranus is at the 13th degree. So really, I'm sorry, Mercury is at 1 degree of Pisces, and Uranus is at 2 degrees of Taurus. So they're closing in on a sextile to one another. So remember, when we talk about aspects, how we are in a building time, and the building time we call applying, where the faster moving planet, in this case Mercury, is applying pressure or applying to the slower moving planet, in this case Uranus. Then they hit the conjunction, or they hit the opposition, or the square, or whatever aspect it is that we're talking about, and it becomes exact. And then it wanes, which is called separating. So as the planet moves beyond the exact aspect, then it's called a separation. But we have a span of degrees over which we are influenced by these particular transits. So even though today the sun is at, that Mercury's at 1 degree and Uranus is at 2 degrees, we're still pushing toward that, in this case, it's a sextile. And a sextile between Mercury, Gemini's ruling planet, and Uranus, which rules, in some respects, we call it the higher mind, right? The genius mind, the part of the mind that's connected to source, perhaps, or streams in information from on high, if you will, through the galactic center, perhaps, or through the cosmos. Let's just call it cosmic mind. So Uranus connects us to the cosmic mind, while Mercury connects us to the human mind. So we're able to stream consciousness today, tomorrow, and likely for the next day or so as Mercury is aligning with Uranus. And that brings us this opportunity to stay open-minded, right? Open-minded, just open up your mind, clear out all of the things that you think you know, that you believe, the patterns that you've established, and just stay open, right? This is about allowing progressive ideas to come in. And I thought it was interesting on a political note, and I don't mean that this is political in a way, but last night was the Iowa caucuses for the Democratic ticket, for the election here in the USA for November. And it was a cluster. I mean, so much stuff was happening, right? That the app wouldn't work and they couldn't get the numbers. We still don't really know, as far as I know, who the actual winner was. It was just kind of a mess. And that means it is our opportunity then for a progressive idea. Maybe the idea of caucusing has run its course, right? Maybe it's time for a different way of Iowa and Nevada and some other states in our union that still caucus to do something different, right? I think the combination of Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter having been in Capricorn, exposing the weaknesses, exposing the places in the structure that aren't working anymore, then it gives us the opportunity when planets move through Aquarius, or when Uranus comes into contact with other planets, or when planets like Mercury come into contact with Uranus, to see anew, right? To try something new. There's something very intuitive about this energy as well, in that, in human design, we have 3 ways of knowing. Wow, I couldn't get that third finger up there. 3 ways of knowing. The first way of knowing is one you'll recognize right off. It's called logic. And Mercury and Uranus can tap us into logic. In human design, logic is really just a recognition of patterns and how those patterns repeat themselves, and then to be able to predict the future based on the pattern, right? So predicting the future based on the pattern, that is logic. There's a second way of knowing called intuition, right? And intuition is the oldest form of knowing in our bodies, right? In the human template. It came up well before logic ever was thought of, right? Or that logic was born. And it is the way that we tune in to the information in the fields around us, our bodies, right? Our bodies tuning in to what's going on around us. And then in response to that stimulus, or that incoming information that comes in through our intuition, then we act, or we don't act, such as the case may be. The third way is just pure knowingness. It is I don't know how I know what I know, but I just know. And it operates differently than intuition. Intuition is sort of the body's response. Knowingness is like just etheric, and we take action based on that. It's sort of the thing that got me into astrology, was that I don't know how I know what I know. I just know. I just tap in, and it comes in. And I don't know if that's because other lifetimes I did something like this, or if it's because I'm tapping into the cosmos. Who knows? I don't need to know, because I just know. So 3 ways of knowing. When we get a Mercury in a sextile to Uranus, what we have is the ability to tap into all of those ways of knowing, right? They're all linked, and they all work in different ways. and they all work better in different situations. But we are often caught up in a process where we believe we only can use one or the other. And most often it is that we default to the logical mind, right? The logical mind. So bring in some other ways of knowing, test them with yourself, feel things in your body, and sense things out in the ethers that you just have no other way of knowing what you know, but you just know. All right, so we have that opportunity, and then that can stir the pot a bit and bring us in insights and ahas and revelations, right? We're ahead of the full moon, which occurs between Saturday and Sunday, depending on what time zone you're in. And that's a time anyway of completion and revelation and ahas. So we have this ability right now to bring in some of these things, gathering in this information from all the ways of knowing, and then use that information as a way to bring us some kind of genius aha energies. We also have this think outside of the box energy apparent. Uranus is not a planet that does things traditionally. He does not do things the same old way. He doesn't do things the way that everybody else thinks things should be done. This is the rebel energy. This is revolutionary energy. This is new ahas. This is that stellar, I should have had a V8 kind of energy, right? Thinking outside of the box brings us new approaches and new ways of handling old problems. New ahas bring us the energy to connect with something new and with something forward thinking and with something extraordinarily Aquarian in nature. Interesting, right? Change it up today. Today's a change it up sort of day. Don't do things the same old way. Do not get stuck in a routine, right? This morning, it's funny because I didn't realize until I was drying my hair that I hadn't put up a post this morning letting you all know that I would be here. And I went, oh, wow. So the universe is contriving to keep me from doing my usual as I got totally out of rhythm this morning. But that's what with this energy is about, varying your routine. When you vary your routine, it allows openness. And in that openness, then something new can occur, be different. Right? This is the day to be different, to march to the beat of your own drummer, to get outside of that box again and do something unique, fun-loving, perhaps, more following your curiosity into new territory. That's really kind of the energy that we have going on for the day today. It is also a day where the moon squares Neptune, and that tends to up the intuitive factor going on. So I had an interesting dream last night. It was actually this morning, I believe, because it happened just before I woke up, about ants. And it made me almost, and I should have done it. I should have gone to the spirit animal deck to see if there were ants, because there were millions of ants and they were coming up from the ground and up a wall. And I mean, literally the wall was moving. There were so many ants. So I need to look that up so I can find out what that dream might have meant for me. And I wasn't disturbed by the fact. I was just sort of in awe of how many ants there were. Much like, some other beings might be in awe of how many humans there are. Okay, I'm going to quickly go back over to Facebook and see if I can find comments here. Good morning, Debbie Tibbetts. Angela says, interesting. I've never separated out intuition and psychic knowing or just knowing. Yeah, and I'm not sure that we need to separate it out so much as just to recognize that there are these three distinct things, ways that we have of knowing, and that we can tap into them all. Some people are more adept at logic, and you can see that in a human design chart, by the way, through the logic circuit. Some people tap into intuition, and you can see that when people tap into the individual circuitry. And then some people just tap into knowingness, and that's tapping people whose human design is more set in the sensing circuitry. So we have different ways of knowing, but we all come we come with all of it and the ability to tap into all of it. But we each have a specific one or two that we really tap into the most. And unbelievably, when I looked at my own human design, the sensing circuit is my primary circuitry. So of course, knowingness is huge in mine. And I didn't even know that with my logical mind. But when I discovered that, I went, oh, that makes so much sense. And you can't take that away from someone. So if you're logical and you're analytical, there's not any reason to take that away from you. It's not that I'm saying that being logical isn't as good as being intuitive or knowing. It's just that we need to be a little more spherical, perhaps, in the way that we do that. Knowing that maybe you're slanted more to logic means that maybe sometimes you have to work a little more to bring in intuition or knowingness. And if you are more into knowingness, then maybe you have to tap in a little more to logic. So we play all of that because we have all of that in our human design. But the way that we're designed might be that we need to maybe strengthen one or the other, or learn how to balance them better within us. Angela says, how do you find your main circuitry in human design? Oh dear, that's a big question. It's a good question, but what you do, in fact, I do have some sheets where you take all of the gates that are defined, or the channels that are defined in your human design, and you assign it to what circuitry it's part of. And there are sub-circuits within the circuitry. So for example, there's the tribal circuit. And in the tribal circuit, there is the defense circuitry as well as the ego circuitry. In the logical, in the understanding circuit, they don't call it the logic circuit, they call it the understanding circuit. There are sub-circuits, and the same thing with the universal circuit, or the, what the heck? The knowingness circuit, the sensing circuit, and it has sub-circuits underneath it as well. So you really have to understand, it's a bigger concept, and you really have to really understand how that circuitry works. And maybe someday we'll take that up and show you the different circuits. Debbie Tibbetts, yes, there are ants. Awesome. I'll have to look that up, Debbie. Thank you. And there, I saw a comment pass by Mimi, and this is something that is going to annoy me using this new system, because new comments are coming in and then I miss them. And hold on, I'm going to see if there's a way to, I was going to try this out yesterday and I couldn't see how I could be, I might just have to embrace the idea of having an assistant help me in the morning, sort of like what Mimi did with the trolls that we had. Somebody that can help me moderate comments, because I can't see them all. And I'm so sorry if I'm missing your comment. I went back to yesterday's requests for readings, and I realized that several of you requested and I didn't even get to see that you had requested. So my apologies for that, but doing things a little differently, sometimes you have to figure out the ins and the outs, and that's what we're doing, changing things up, learning how to adapt, because today's energy, by the way, in the Pleiadian-Earth calendar is all about change. The number 5, right? Yesterday we had that stability and that foundation, that pause moment where we take in the 1, the 2, and the 3. We make it integrate within us, or we get it integrated into us. And now we come to the next level, which is the 5, the opportunity for change. This is the energy where we adjust our path or the direction that we're headed in, perhaps. It really emphasizes our power of choice, our power to choose. Remember, we talk about free will sometimes here in the morning, and we all think we have free will, but then what is that? Well, ultimately, free will is your power to choose. And even if you were in a prison, you have the power to choose your feelings around that, your daily attitude. You always have the power of choice. And to quote a rather famous band called Rush, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. So all the time, our free will is tempting to get us to choose. And we choose, right? We choose how we react. We choose whether we react. We choose whether we go left or right, up or down, eat this, drink that. So every day is really a collection of choices. And what today's energy brings us then in the 5, the universal energy of 5, is about how to be flexible, how to adapt to a changing world or to a changing environment, to a very quickly changing social media platform, right? And no, I thought I could be on Facebook Live without doing anything else forever, but that didn't happen. And so here we are on the 5 energy, forced almost into that adaptability. But there's also something else kind of fun that I didn't, this is another learning opportunity this morning that I discovered about the 5 energy. And it is tapping us into the ability to imagine the unimaginable. Imagine the unimaginable. What if, right? That big what if, that hanging question about what if the world could be at peace? What if every person had clean water and access to health care and had money to live on and or the resources at their fingertips? What if, right? Imagine the unimaginable. So today's energy of 5 brings us that new idea of if we can't imagine it, we cannot create it. And there's a theory in anthropological circles, I guess you would say, or in thought processes around the evolution of humankind, that Neanderthals died off because they did not have the ability to imagine. And that the two hemispheric brains, the two hemispheric brain gives us the opportunity for both the logical facts and the imagination, and that together those two hemispheres can work to bring us a holistic being. So imagine the unimaginable. We cannot imagine, if we cannot imagine a world where we get along, if we cannot imagine a world where everybody's needs are met, then we cannot create that world, because we can't do anything without our imagination. Now, the other energy of the day is being. In the Mayan calendar, it was Emish. Emish was the great crocodile or the great alligator. That was the creator energy. In the cosmic myths of the Maya, the alligator brought forth life, brought forth humans, gave birth to humanity, gave birth to the cosmic egg. And out of the cosmic egg came all of life. And so here is then the energy of being, and being is creator energy. So it puts you in the driver's seat for creating change in your life, creating change on the planet. So it's an interesting energy, and creator energy is also very nurturing. So it is the energy that gives birth to and then nurtures to adulthood, or to somewhat of a mature level, its creations. So if it is a mother who's giving birth to a child and taking then that child and nurturing it to its adulthood, right? Or an idea, birthing an idea and taking it to its point of launching out into the world. So today is a creator day that causes us to bring something new into the world out of a field of change energy, which I find extraordinary, extraordinary, extraordinary. Debbie says, Ant Spirit seems perfect for you today with what you've been expressing about maybe needing help with your new system. Aha, maybe. And Colleen says, and we can choose again if we didn't like the first choice. So true. You're never stuck with your first choice. You can always make change. Good morning, Amy. And Angela says, how do you find your main circuit in human design? I think I answered that one. That's about finding the gates that you have and then assigning it to the circuit that it belongs to. And the one that has the preponderance of gates in your chart defined is the circuit that you're mostly connected to. And a little bit more, like I said, in depth than what we can do right here. But maybe I'm going to make a note to myself. Maybe we'll do that one day. Circuitry. Because there are different circuits, of course, like the individual circuit. If you have a preponderance of the energy in the individual circuit, it doesn't only tap you into the way of knowing, it taps you into a sort of field of energy of who it is you're meant to be on the planet. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the individual circuit taps people into being different, being on a different wavelength. And so often, people who have a lot of individual circuitry in their charts wonder where their people are, right? Wonder who they belong to, because like, I don't belong to you people. I don't resonate with you people. So like, where are my people? And they're looking to the stars and to the heavens wondering, did they just get dropped here? And when are my people coming back to get me? Because they're out of resonance with other people. But, or with the mainstream, let's say. It's not so much the people, but it might be the ideas or the culture or the belief system of the people that they find themselves around. And they sit there then in their world going, I don't belong, I don't fit, why not? They feel like they're the odd person out. In reality, individual circuitry is meant for you to express your own uniqueness and bring that out into the world. And so there's value in knowing your circuitry, because if you're someone who's always wondered why you don't fit, it's possible you don't fit because you have a lot of that individual circuitry and you're not here to fit, right? That isn't your path. So you can see often who it is you're meant to be by what's going on in the circuitry and the preponderance of planets in which place. Okay, I don't see any other comments there. So I'm going to go on and I'm going to have to change out. I'm going to get off of Facebook because everything on Facebook lags behind what I'm doing. So I see myself doing the things that I just did and it's driving me crazy. So I'm going to stay here on Zoom for a minute. I'll go back in a couple of minutes because today I want to bring up the gene keys. And the gene keys, of course, for many of you who have been with me here for a while, is the more holographic view of what's going on in your human design. And by holographic, I mean that we can see through dimensionally into the energies of the gates in your human design. So when we say, for example, that the sun is at the gate 13, in the human design, the gate 13 is about listening. And it gives you some clues, right? You can tell that you're dealing with the ears. You're dealing with a field of auditory sound, and listening might make you think, maybe it's something deeper than just hearing. And so we can get some information then from the human design idea of what that gate means. When we look at it in the gene keys, we look into that gene key through layers. The first layer being the shadow layer, or the shadow level, or the shadow. We could just call it the shadow or the fear field. The second layer is the gift field. This is where we are able to evolve up out of the fear, out of the shadow, and we're into the gift. And then once we can get to the gift layer, then some people will be able to merge up to the siddhi, which is the highest expression of the energy through that particular gate. Now remember, you all have all of the human design, you all have every gene key. It's a matter of how it's being expressed through you, because it's either defined, and if it's defined by a planet. And what does that planet mean? And how does it flavor that gene key or that human design gate? And or you have it open, which means that it's inconsistently expressed in your phenotype. Let's say we could go to the DNA, or we could go to genetics and call it your phenotype, the personality field in which you express the energy. And if it's open, then you are expressing it differently based on the environment that you're in, or the people that you're around, or the conditioning field that you grew up in. So it's not that you're missing it. It just comes out differently in different times, in different ways, with different people in different situations. Where if you have it defined, you have a pretty defined way of expressing it because you're broadcasting that energy. And then the people who have it open pick it up, right? So it's not that you don't have it. It's that you have it all, and that it's expressed differently based on whether you have it colored in or not. And then also, even taking it a little further, what if it's colored in? Is it red? Is it black? Is it striped? Or is it connected up to the other end at gate 33 as a channel? So we have all these different ways in which that we can evaluate how you personally are expressing that gate energy or that gene key. But when we look at this on a collective level, because I've already told you we all have all of this, then we can look at these layers as the evolutionary impulse that's moving through the planet at any given time. And when the sun, it's himself, the bright light of our universe that we live in here, our solar system, when the sun is put at a specific gate or gene key, then that energy lights up, right? And it comes into our consciousness in very powerful ways. Likewise, the earth energy is always in a sort of evolutionary position in your human design or in the transiting chart, in that the moon, I mean, excuse me, the earth is stimulating the evolution to the sun. So they're working together, let's say in tandem, one to bring an issue up and to make it available for us, and then the other that is showing us where the challenges might still be in order to move up to that next level, and or to cause a challenge that forces us, almost like a square in astrology, forces us to make change, to adapt, to grow, to move, to allow change to happen. Hopefully that's making sense to everybody. I'm going to go check back with Facebook really quick and make sure everybody's understanding that. Colleen says, well, society, or in my case, my family, tells me I don't belong. Oh, but you do. And Allison, if you go to YouTube and search Richard Rudd Circuitry, there are videos. You are such a YouTuber, aren't you, Allison? I love it. So no questions. I got to remember I'm lagging behind. I'm ahead. The video is lagging behind. So I'm going to wait for a second and see if anybody has questions. But let's just say this, that you are so much more than you thought you were, because you are not 3D, just 3D, right? There, you are a dimensional being. You are a hologram of all of the energy that's potential out there. So if you are a hologram, then that means, or you have a holographic framework, then you can also move through that hologram. You can move through that framework, right? You can evolve through that framework, and you might evolve and then come back a little bit and then evolve some more and then come back, right? Because you're always moving through that field of the hologram. Allison, yep, you can find anything on it. Yes, you can. Jacqueline says, here goes Mercury. Had to go on my phone. My Wi-Fi cut off, has blinking lights. Oh dear. Sometimes that happens when you have, I didn't know this, and maybe you guys didn't know this either, but if you have your Wi-Fi coming in through a modem, like maybe you have cable, I have cable internet, that you actually have to update your modem. You have to clear it out. You have to, like clearing the cache on your browsers, clearing the cookies and all of that. You actually have to do that to your modem. And you do that by recycling it, or going through a start cycle. So you unplug it and you wait for like 10 seconds, and then you plug it back in, and then it resets the modem. So I don't know if that's your issue there, Jacqueline, but it's what happens when mine suddenly goes to blinking lights. I go, oh, it's been too long since I last updated it, or, cleared it out. So maybe that'll help. All right, no other questions. So everybody's pretty much knowing or understanding this idea of the hologram, which is good. So now let's go back. I'm going to go back to Zoom because I can't stand to see myself in behind lagging. The gene key 13 is where the sun is sitting right now, and its title, Listening Through Love. And the gift in this particular gene key is the gift of discernment. And that doesn't sound so very sexy, but when you really break it down, discernment is huge. Its shadow is discord, right? We can sense that one, right? The discord is the inability to listen to and learn from our experiences in the world. So when we're listening through love, we are not in discord, right? Because we're listening from a higher point of view. When we're in discord, then we're not listening through love. We're listening through fear. Maybe we're not even listening. Maybe we're just hearing the fear. And then we don't have the ability to really experience the world and take everything in a way that allows us that pathway to evolution. In the highest expression, the siddhi expression in this gate, or this gene key, it's empathy. Empathy as the siddhi comes through discernment. So it's the path from discord to empathy through discernment. So we have a theme going on this week then about listening. And let's define hearing versus listening. So when we define hearing, it's really just the acoustic absorption of auditory information through the ear, right? The apparatus in your ear takes in the sound, which is the acoustic expression, and absorbs it and then translates it into auditory information. Then it makes its way to the brain, and this is going on very rapidly. It's a very physical sort of listening, right? Or hearing. Hearing is it's the physical expression. The energy of listening is not done through the organ you call your ear. Listening is done through all of you, through your whole being. It's that full attention that we give when we're talking to a child or we're talking to someone, when we have something important to say, and the person that we're saying it to is listening with their whole being, right? That their body is with you, their mind is with you, their eyes are locked with yours. They are adopting a posture even. You can tell when somebody's just hearing you versus when somebody's really listening to you. It's linked, by the way, listening is linked to the way we process our life experiences on an emotional level. Think about that for a minute, right? There's a huge link between listening and emotions. Think about a piece of music when you are really listening. So in the morning, sometimes my husband turns on music and it's in the background sometimes, and I'm bebopping around doing my day. I'm not really listening to the music. It's in the background. But if I really hear a song that perks my interest, then my whole being now is listening to this song. It's triggered an emotion, maybe a positive memory, maybe you know it when you hear somebody giving a moving speech, right? You're now listening with your whole being. Something they said triggered that emotional response within you. So listening is really linked to our emotions, and our emotions, as you all know, the solar plexus is undergoing a huge evolution as we move forward in time here. And we're now at 2020. We have about 7 years now for that evolution to really leap out and become the for that center to become the master center, if you will, for knowing in our human template, taking us away from that fear field of the spleen and the survival energy of the spleen and planting us in that emotional energy, which is linked then to listening, not the auditory absorption of the sound, but the whole being listening, the filter of listening. Now, these two gene keys, the 13, which is where the sun is, and the 7, where the earth is, exert a lot of pressure on us as humans and influences the dynamics of who we are here in on the planet in groups. So you could call like a nation a group. It's a group of people that agree that they're going to live within the boundaries of this particular country or nation. In the United States, we have 50 states. So we are a group of people that agree to live in a nation, but also are living together in a state. You might be part of a community. And so you're part of the nation, you're part of a state, but you're also part of that community. And then even smaller, we can go, you're part of a family. And so we have lots of ways in which we arrange ourselves in groups. And you can imagine where we can sort of get to discord when you have a lot of different people in the fear field, where the dynamics of your groups are being influenced by people who are not listening to one another, or not listening to their inner voices, not listening to the voice of experience and making change in the world based on that. So these two gene keys, by the way, the shadow of the gene key 7 is division. And I got to check real quick because now I got to go. If I've given you the shadow, I got to give you the rest, right? The shadow is division. The gift is guidance. And the siddhi is virtue. Interesting combo, 3 combos there. Virtue is its own reward is the name of that particular gene key. And it's really a gene key based on leadership. So it takes us into how we want to find our destiny. So it's steering us toward our destiny and along the path toward our destiny, both collectively and individually. The 7th gene key, the 7, pulls us toward the future, right? And has us facing forward. Janus, right? Remember the two-faced god, right? They're looking one at the future. And the gene key 13 urges us to remember the past and to learn from the past. We don't do that very well. We don't really learn from the past very well. But this two-facing gene key, right? One forward, one backward, or one backward, one forward, is about urging us to remember the past, to discern the things that have caused problems, and out of that discernment, then we choose a new pathway. So for example, just using what happened last night in our Iowa caucuses here in the United States, is it possible it's time to reevaluate, to listen and learn from the past, this past experience, and perhaps then looking at the future, how do we lead into a new way of being in that energy, in the political field, or in the democratic way of electing a leader. So big things, but then also in your individual lives, these things are happening where you're not learning from the past. Are you listening to this? Because this is where we hit our head up against the brick wall, right? Where we can go into that insanity of doing things the same way and expecting a new result and not getting it and wondering what the bleep is going on, right? So here we have this need individually and collectively to really listening to the deeper experiences collectively from the past, as well as then looking to the gene key 7 as a way to pull us to the future, to see what comes next, to lead us into the new. All right, going back to Facebook really quickly, want to see what comments are going on. Val says almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including your phone, or including you, Anne Lamont. Yes, Anne, unplug and come back in, then you'll be fine. Gail, joining late. Good morning to you, Gail. It's wonderful to have you with us. Mimi, LOL, I have gate 13 in both columns. Design is Mars and personality in Earth, and the thought of Eris energy came to mind if I stayed in the shadow. Glad to know how much I respect discernment. And yes, indeed, discernment is huge. It is probably the one thing that can lead us out of the mire of chaos that we have gotten into here in our humanity, in our world. And now what I want to do, because I just so love this book, right? I want to take you now into the Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook by Rosie Aronson. This is a deck of cards, right? We have the whole deck of the cards. And then we also have the individual cards with the individual stories. So first I'm going to go into the 13. How are we doing time? So we'll probably only get to 13 today. So look at the card. Isn't she gorgeous? And she's called Discernment. Let me move it over here away from my cursor. Discernment. Love her chin. That's a new way to look at your chin, right? With the sunshine on it. And let's see what this card talks about. So discernment begins at an individual level as you come to see how deeply your view of others is connected to your feelings. Over time, you reclaim the ability to listen to others and the world from a broader perspective. Again, the shadow is discord, the gift is discernment, and the siddhi is empathy. So here's the story. I grew up in a fundamentalist household to parents who were narrow-minded, opinionated, and reactive. If I expressed something that didn't fit with their beliefs or was too optimistic, they beat me down with words or a belt. They were always in the right, and I was always in the wrong. To survive their anger, bitterness, and pessimism, I turned into water. I became soft, compliant, and forever yielding. I sacrificed my backbone in order to stay safe and got so good at pretending to be sweet and kind that I forgot that I was pretending. As I entered womanhood, I became a permissive carpet, allowing others to walk all over me. And even though I had strong beliefs inside, I never stood up for what I believed in. I repeated this pattern, falling into one abusive relationship after another. All of my decisions were fueled by a desire for safety, even though I was rarely safe. And I was often surrounded by discord. I refused to do what I knew had to be done. Until the day I saw my husband touching my daughter inappropriately. That was it. I could no longer deny my feelings or refuse to act. The moment I was forced to listen to the rage, pain, and utter hopelessness that had been living inside of me was the moment my true heroic life began. Now I watch the human drama playing out all around me with empathy, compassion, and optimism. I write myths and children's books that acknowledge the mythical journey that is the human life. All true heroes and heroines go through the dark night of the soul. Transformation and redemption, love that theme, are inevitable when we are willing to wake up, discern, and truly listen. My gift to you, I am here to wake you up. Where are you repeating the same mistakes? Where are you refusing to listen and accept the consequences of your heart's truth? You will be surprised at how courageous you are once you begin to be honest with yourself. It is time to start listening to yourself and to others. Learn the art of discernment. Listen beneath the words. Listen for the deeper desires, the emotional agenda, and the underlying tone. Listen beyond your individual individual story. There is a grand mythic human drama playing out in your life and all around you. We are all a part of it. We all have our version of the underworld. We all carry the wand of a wizard, the sword of a warrior, and the potential for a happy ending. As you begin to see the mythic quality of your own rich human life, your optimism will grow right along with your empathy, compassion, and heroic potential. You are not alone. I am here. Then the questions for contemplation. Where are you trapped in a self-destructive cycle? Great question. Where are you starving for empathy from yourself or others? Discern the ways that your experience of the world around you is colored by your mental and emotional states. How can you be more empathic towards yourself and others in your everyday life? And is there a myth you resonate with at a deep level, one that reflects your family or your cultural story? If you were to write your own myth, what would it be about? Who would be the protagonist? Write a simple myth in your journal. Let the story impact your life. Awesome. Well, discernment, right? This beauty. Okay, to go back to Facebook really quick, see what kind of questions are popping up. How did everybody do with that story? Jacqueline says, wow, that is intense. My throat is raspy and hurting me. I would dare say I hold my words back a lot of times. The universe will push it if needed. Definitely, definitely, definitely. And you know that when your body goes through a reaction to something that you're hearing or something, then it's listening, it's begging you to listen, right? Your body's in response to this now. And listening then is the pathway that you've got to move through here in order to understand what that's all about for you, Jacqueline. Gail, great message today, listening. Indeed, it's a big, big message. And, you know, based on the time that we are at right now, I think I'm going to hold the Gene Key 7 until tomorrow. And I also want you guys to know that there's much more to this shadow than just listening or not, right? There's also a component here about how the Gene Key 30, desire, our desire and that void. Remember, we've talked about the void and how we always want to fill that void with something, whether we need to fill it with sound, whether we're filling it with food, whether we're filling it with people, noise, our devices, right? What are we filling the void with? Comes from the desire that we have and the feeling that we're never full, that we can never get enough. And that plays into this as well, because it's part of the same codon ring of purification, I believe it's called, in the gene keys. Remember, the gene keys are arranged in pairs or, well, codon rings, which are also related to how your DNA forms and expresses the traits that you have and how you transduce the light that comes in through your DNA and back out into the world. So we have a lot more to this story of the Gene Key 13 and also then taking up the Gene Key 7. Also today, Mercury moved into the Gene Key 55. you know, I wish the planets sometimes would stand still so that I had time to transmit all of this information to you all, because there's so many layers and levels of every one of these gene keys. And to do that would be, I mean, literally this morning, I almost got juiced out trying to cover all of the gene key 13. And I realized I can't do it. I can't do it in one sitting because it would be too much information. And I'm not sure that you would really understand the whole thing, right? The whole thing. So breaking it down into the shadow, the gift, and the Siddhi seems like the best way to do that. But at the same time, planets are moving, other planets like Mercury moving to the gate of abundance. 55 is the gate of abundance in human design, but in gene keys, it's about freedom and freeing your mind in this case, because the planet Mercury represents your mind and how we communicate with one another. So we have a lot of really juicy, good energies going on, and the potential for us to really connect to what is the next level for us. And I would say that a lot of us are playing in the shadow maybe 10% of the time, and that we're reaching up maybe the other 80 to 90% of the time to the gift. And maybe 5% of the time we're, you know, maybe we can just see that Siddhi state within our grasp, but we haven't quite gotten there. So we've got to get consistently to the gift level, at least, if we want to change the field of energy on the planet. So if we want to jump out of fear, then we have to do what we can to get to the gift, right? So we have to first understand, where's that fear coming from? How is it showing up in the world? And then in our own personal lives. And then how do we move up to the next level? So that's a worthy endeavor, I believe, for us to do this, both in our group here in the morning, but also individually for you. You know, get the Gene Keys book, and or do what Allison would do and get on Facebook or YouTube and go to the channels and look up the Gene Key 13 and get an idea of what everybody's, you know, talking about in terms of this gene key or in this energy. All right. Well, that is it for me this morning. Thank you all for joining me. I will see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Until then, have a wonderful day. All right. Bye for now.